Good evening and welcome to Western Reiki Association Presents Reiki Currents, a Reiki News Live talk show, bringing you interviews with Reiki wisdom holders and stories of hope and healing from around the world. I'm Stephen Vandiver, your host. The focus on Reiki is to spotlight one of the world's fastest growing self-care, spiritual, and personal development tools. Everyone can learn this calming, relaxing, and healing technique and channel universal life force energy. As we come to know that our universe and everything around us, including our physical bodies, is made entirely of energy, learning to effectively work with that energy is key. Reiki is a priceless addition to your personal spiritual development toolbox. Our guest tonight is Reverend Dr. Tracy Cox. Tracy is an ordained minister, Doctor of Divinity, Reiki Master Teacher, spiritual mentor, and coach. Tracy has an active spiritual ministry and works with clients and students worldwide by phone, webcam, as well as in person at her private office in Aurora, Ontario, Canada. Her doctoral dissertation was focused on scientific research proving the power of prayer.
That's right.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Very nice. Lovely evening.
I love to start out to hear about, your journey to healing, your journey to this whole journey. How did it all start for you?
I think that it started very young for me because probably, actually, we were just talking about the fact that you live around Lake Tahoe in Nevada. My family, we went on a family trip when I was 14 years old and went through Lake Tahoe. We went through Vegas, and the very interesting thing was in Vegas, I went into a New Age bookstore. And this was like right at the start, right? Because I would have been 14 and 53 now. So I don't even want to think about what year it was. But it was just all opening up at that time. So I picked up some spiritual books, started reading, and it just continued to grow from there. I actually was hired to teach yoga and guided meditation at a exclusive health spa in King City called the King Ranch. And it was built by billionaires for billionaires. So we had the best in executive stress reduction experts, doctors teaching us all the latest cutting edge spiritual wellness information, guided meditation, Reiki. So I came from a really kind of a medical background with this. And I learned how to take it seriously from an early age, is what I would say. A lot of people, as we were talking about earlier before the show, it's like skeptics think that we're just out there, right? A lot of them still think that. But for me, working in the industry for so long, I know that it works. Like we were saying about my doctoral dissertation about the power of prayer, scientifically it works. So it's like, why not let's use what's available to us and cut our egos out? Because some people are disappointed that prayer works. It lets them down because they have this horrible worldview that doesn't work. And when you show them the science, they just kind of slink off. Why don't they want to use it is what I don't understand why you just service your ego so much that you can't say, well, you know what, I was wrong and let's embrace this. So that's kind of what I'm going with, is that it's all scientifically proven. So let's tap into what's available to us, right? It's not far-fetched. It's not.
Absolutely. And I want to touch on that science a little bit. But in your bio, you talk about this near-death experience that you had when you were 18. And how that...
Oh, sure. Well, it's all very different to theorize about life after death or what it's like when you're outside of your body, all those things. But when it happens to you, I was in a medical emergency and the doctors were working on my body, and all of a sudden I was up out of my body and up kind of in the corner of the room. I could see what was going on, but I could see further. It's really hard to describe, but it was like this long, in video games where you see kind of the walls dissolve and you move through them. It was like that, so that as it opened up, you could see further. And the thing that was interesting about it is that I've always been very nearsighted, so I've always worn glasses. And what I noticed about it that really made it real for me was the fact that my vision was perfect. I was out of my body and my vision was perfect. And it was not only perfect, it was like the colors were super saturated, very alive, and very different from what we experience in our day-to-day here. Like, this is just a taste, and that's what really brought it home for me, was the fact that all this stuff does exist. Spirit does exist. What I always say about it is that our body is the car and our soul or spirit is the driver. And so we get so wrapped up in the car, right? Thinking that this car is going to live forever. And I'm sorry, there's no car that's going to live forever. So, but the driver will continue. Driver doesn't, if a driver retires a car, they don't just stop driving, they get their next car. So that's what I think about our energy. I think that our energy is the driver and our body is the car. And
how did this
we remember that.
How did this near-death experience, change you, or did it confirm some things, or what did you experience that, really kind of propelled you from there?
I would think it was just the knowing that there's an afterlife, the knowing that there's something more, the knowing that this is not a myth, and that all this stuff, because I was always fairly, I wouldn't say religious, but spiritual as a child. Like, one side of the family was ministry for a long period of time, out of the Moravian church in Jamaica, many, many years. And so there was always somebody involved in ministry or doing something in the church. And so I had that as a child around me. And I was part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was always, I didn't question that God exists. I knew God existed. I knew that spirit existed. This was nothing that somebody was trying to influence me to think. It was just more like an inner knowing. Yeah. So I think that the near-death experience just kind of enhanced that.
Right. Yeah.
And
I was asking in particular, Joseph Selby wrote a book called Physics of God, and he talks about these near-death experiences and compares them to, advanced yogis that,
sure. Absolutely,
are able to go deep inside of meditation and have a similar type of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. It is, any form of enlightenment. It's really the same thing, I would think. When you achieve that, when you do a Reiki, a self-healing, and you see your path before you, and you see everything that's blocking you and the way that you need to deal with it, and it's all in an instant, it's the same thing, right? That universal life force is that energy. It's trying to communicate with us all the time. That's why we learn Reiki, so that we can pick up on those messages, right?
Absolutely.
It's very easy.
Yeah, for your research on the power of prayer, for the scientific research, were there any particular, scientists or studies that you... Yeah,
there was a few things. One of the things that I found really interesting was that there's an artist named Alex Gray, and you probably see a lot of his stuff with the universal mind lattice and all the very intricate body stuff as well. And he was an artist that was working on Grey's Anatomy as well. Like, he was working in Harvard to pay the bills, right? Doing the paintings for the anatomy books. And some of what he talked about when my husband and I went down to his retreat in New York was the fact that as they were learning about the body, scientists were learning about the electrical field at the same time. So he was able to see some of this cutting edge equipment to be able to see the energy field in the way that it flowed in the body. So that's where a lot of his paintings, I believe, came from, was the fact that this stuff is all real. It's just nothing that we know about because it's so cutting edge. I mean, if scientists find the God particle or whatever you want to call it, like, how different is everything going to be? But quantum physicists believe that essentially we're living in something that they call the superstring theory, and that's that all moments in time exist simultaneously. There is only one eternal moment. So that which is has always been. If you have other lifetimes, they're happening right now. Do you know what I'm saying? It's all happening now. Yeah. So that expansion of your mind and using Reiki to kind of control where you send the energy, I think is a type of spiritual freedom that people don't really, they don't understand until they've started studying it. I find Reiki is so great because it teaches everybody this scientific stuff in a very recipe book kind of way, right? So that everybody can understand it. It's not over our heads. And if we follow it, we'll have success. You know what I mean? Too many people get too far down the rabbit hole with it and ego starts to intrude. And I think that's where the trouble happens. Yeah. You know, when people say, I don't feel it, or...
Yeah, what you were talking about, the power of prayer, reminds me of Lynn McTaggart's book, The Intention Experiment, and reading about a prayer study that was done. These people that had some sort of sepsis or something they got while they were in the hospital, being treated for something else, and you know, it was a controlled study and, you know, done correctly. And so some of the people were prayed for, some weren't. Everyone that was prayed for recovered quicker, had less discomfort, lived, you know, fewer deaths and all this sort of thing.
That's right.
And then it was revealed at the end of the study that these people were in the hospital a decade prior to the prayer experiment.
Right.
Right. So
really?
You know, to your point about everything existing simultaneously.
Exactly. One of the other things that was very interesting, there's a research group called the Spindrift Society, and they research the power of prayer very strongly, have always done so. And one of the studies that they did was that there was an African outreach where they were feeding people that were starving, and they were running out of refrigeration, and they were like, we don't know how we're going to keep this milk okay. Like, it's going to go. And so they prayed, and they got everybody to pray, and the milk stayed fine for days and days. And it was very interesting because they tried to, after everybody had signed off that, yes, this is what had happened, they tried to redo it in a lab, and it didn't work. So prayer also has to be appropriate. You can't just be fooling around to say scientifically, you know, let's pray and make this milk last longer. It's like, are people going to die unless this milk lasts longer? Do you know what I'm saying? Right. That's such an important part of prayer. Yeah. It has to be real. Exactly. It has to be real. I think Princeton, I believe it was, and Moscow University did a computerized thing where they had like the same computer. It was called Deep Blue. It was a chess computer. Have you ever heard of that? It was a chess computer, and it could win chess games with like masters. Okay. And what they had was they had people across the world, one in Princeton and one in Moscow, and they would pray across the world for certain things to happen with Deep Blue, and they would happen like 80% of the time. And this is people completely, just like we're sending distant Reiki, right? Not connected at all. And it worked, and it was very much studied, and, you know, it all works. It all works. Let's just use it. Right. Like, you know, there's tons, 1,500, I think there's at least 1,500 papers on, like, hospital settings where prayers worked. Yeah. So you just have to Google it, and you'll see. There's so much. Yeah, and
there's a lot more studies out now, too, about the effectiveness of Reiki.
Exactly. Yeah. Same thing. All the science with Reiki is the fact that your blood pressure normalizes right away. That's always proven every single time, distance or hands-on. And your T cells go through the roof. So that's what you want, right? Because T cells are what people are trying to do when they take, you know, whatever it is, reishi mushrooms, vitamin C. Right. This is like the natural way of doing it, right? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, with your practice there, now you counsel people. People come to you.
Yes. So what I call myself is a spiritual coach or a marriage coach. Okay, coaching is different from counseling, because counseling tries to drill down deep into all the therapy. I'm not about that. It's like that's for a psychologist if somebody wants to do that. What I'm about is the fact that I deal with people every day that are in crisis situations, and I've been there too. And I can talk to people so that they can step off the ledge. Very literally. Like, I have talked people out of going and sucking on a tailpipe or killing themselves quite often, because people will phone a minister when they're in total crisis, panic, they want to end it all. They're going to give a minister one shot, right? Help me. And so I'm just like, I can help you. And what I got to do is just give them the love, right? And go, we've all been there. Every single one of us knees have hit the ground one time or another in life. It's a part of being human. Yeah. We can't bank on anything as humans. It's very anxiety prone, you know? If you're sensitive at all, that's another reason Reiki is so great, is that you can calm that down. But for somebody that's very sensitive, living in especially the modern world, it's pretty stressful, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty stressful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I do is I try to help them, and the way I help them is I teach them how to tune in. I like to teach everybody Reiki, because I find that if you do yourself Reiki every day, everything is going to work out for you, because you are going to get your third eye open so that you see the truth in what's going on. You're going to connect with your own inner spirit or soul so that you know the direction that you need to take. And the thing is that everybody gets involved with spirituality and thinks, oh, it's just going to be so relaxing and for stress reduction. But what happens is that once you start tapping into your own inner spirit, totally out of the box, things can just jump out and change your life all of a sudden. And it's always for the best, but quite often it can be very dramatic. So you have to keep your mind open when you go down the spiritual path, because things will change. You'll start to see things in different ways. And so I think that when people are in crisis, that's what's happening. They're getting some kind of a breakthrough. But you have to break down first a lot of the time, right? Because we have these ego constructs of the way that our life is all set up. It has to be a certain way. We have to appear a certain way. And if we don't, we start to feel bad about ourselves. And then as we do that, our mentality starts to break down. And that's why daily self-Reiki is so important, so that doesn't happen. You know, we keep our energy up. We keep our aura up. We keep our spiritual armor up, so that we're walking around more proactive than if we were just open and letting things happen to us.
Absolutely. Now, you have students and clients all around the world. Are these, tell me about your clients and how they find you.
Okay, so all over the world, a lot of the time we just talk on Facebook on the webcam, which is just like this. And because we're all, hooked up as friends on Facebook, they can ask me questions as the day goes by. If something's driving them crazy, they want to strangle somebody, whatever it is, they can talk to me, right? So that way we can kind of keep it so that I can deal with what's going on for them at the time. If they're finding that they're having a problem with their Reiki, maybe their meditation. A lot of people have problems with meditation, and I like to keep it really simple. And I have a lot of really simple ways of letting people kind of cut through that noise, not worry about it so much. You're never going to meditate perfectly. Everybody's all like, I have these errant thoughts, and it's like, yeah, you're a human being. Of course you're going to have them. Don't let it worry you. Just whatever. Just observe, detach, and keep going.
Yeah. And so now people can ask you questions during the day, but then do you schedule, private sessions?
Sure.
And what
seminars sometimes. Yeah. Webinars sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. And what's your process, with the clients as far as what you're offering or what you have to offer?
Well, most of the time they come to me at the start for spiritual coaching of some kind, or marriage coaching, couples coaching, because I do a lot of weddings. Marriage preparation courses are so important. Some type of spiritual preparation course, 40% better chance of staying together if you do a marriage prep course. So it's like a no-brainer, right? It's a really good idea. So we do stuff like that. So people come to me for specific, usually either courses or seminars that I'm doing, and then they want to take it deeper. Or they go through something crazy. Like, did you get a chance to read that article that I wrote about Reiki and letting go, the one on Reiki rays that I did this morning? Did you see it?
Yes, I did
Okay, so that talked about a typical clergy scenario. You find you've got a client and everything is going great for them. A member, their career is great. They've got a beautiful house. Their wife loves them. All kinds of great things are happening for them. And then all of a sudden the corporation goes down. They lose their house because they can't pay for it anymore. They find out their wife is having an affair because they haven't been able to put the finery on her, because they find out that they actually had a relationship built on what's in it for me. So their whole life starts to break down around them, and that's when people get desperate. That's when they go into crisis. So those are the kind of people I talk to. Usually when just, the worst things happen. People that are looking at their loved ones in a psych ward, somebody that's gone into a psychosis and is seeing swastikas everywhere, doesn't recognize the loved one. Like, I deal with all these type of people, right? And I've been there personally with someone in my family, gone into a psych ward. So I know what they're going through. And I can be like, it's okay. This is the best thing. The doctors are going to figure out now what's wrong with them. So many people, especially from mental illness, they run from it. They hide, they enable, right? Oh, he's just grouchy. Do you know what I'm saying? And then eventually it can't be held up.
Okay, so.
Sorry?
I can relate personally.
Oh, you've been through the same thing?
Yes.
So you know what I'm talking about, right? So did you help enable that person to sort of interact with the world for a while? Because you think you're doing the right thing, right?
Right. Well, I was on the other side mostly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was on their
Right.
side, and there was plenty of enabling happening around me, and I gladly, took the bait.
Sure, I know exactly what you're talking. Sure, because it's easy and people fall into it. It's a pattern. But when those patterns are broken because things get so bad that they're out of control, people hit bottom, and then they want to talk to somebody like me, because I'm not going to judge them. I'm totally out of the situation. They're not talking to somebody. Let's say a woman finds out her husband's cheating. She finds all the stuff on the phone. She confronts the girl. It's all true. The whole thing, and a lot of the time it involves really dastardly behavior too. Like, it's been happening in the husband and wife's bed. The guy is taking jewelry from the husband to give to you know what I mean? There's a lot of bad behavior people uncover. And it rocks their world to the point that they don't know what to do, and they don't know who to talk to in their life, because they might work it out with that person. But if they tell their mom or dad what their spouse has done, do you think that's going to work out in the long run? The dad's going to want to go over and just, right? The mom. It doesn't. So they can talk to me about it. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm impartial. And confidential, totally confidential.
Right, and so then as you're working with clients, how does Reiki come up in the conversation?
Okay, usually right at the start.
Concept for your
yeah, I know what you're saying. Usually right at the start, I want to see what they're doing for their self-care, because so many people are doing nothing.
Right.
Nothing. Like, not even one thing. So we got to work on that right away, because if the person isn't doing some kind of either meditation, like learning Reiki, stress relief, Reiki, self-Reiki is the best. I'll say it right away. Like, I've been doing this for so long, since I was in my early 20s. So to see the results, Reiki seems to be the best in what I've seen, because like I said, it's like a recipe book. Everybody can learn it. You just do what you're supposed to do and you will get the results. It's just the way it works, whether or not people can discipline themselves to do that is another story. Like, I can always tell if somebody's going to be good as a Reiki practitioner with the way that they react when I tell them that they should be doing their daily self-Reiki every day, never miss. The way that they'll try to wiggle out of it or make excuses or whatever, you can see whether or not they're going to be a good Reiki practitioner. Right? Don't you agree?
I do agree.
Yeah. I know. Because there's an ego thing. Something's going on, right? They want to fight it. oh, I don't need it every day. Oh, I'm just here to help other people. It's like,
yeah, I feel fine today. I don't need to do
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even though, yeah, whatever. It's very interesting. People have a lot of excuses to not do that.
So then the conversation, comes up with Reiki, and then you're able to train him in Reiki. And,
yep.
And so then now, do you do that? You do that locally, I'm sure, but then also do you do that at a distance?
Oh yeah, I have I have a home study course that I give them, and then we meet online just like this.
Oh, nice.
And so I teach them both ways.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great.
That's great. So
I prefer, to be honest, I prefer working on the webcam with people, and I'll tell you why. There's two things. The eco. You're not burning fossil fuels to get somewhere. You're not heating an office. You're not having to charge more money because you've got overhead. There's a whole bunch of reasons, right, that something like this is a cutting edge thing, I think. We can travel anywhere in the world with it, which is amazing. There's so many, and working with people, I find with the kind of sensitive issues that I have, there's a little bit of protection for them. They feel that they can open up to me more because it's just a screen, right? They're not in front of me in an unfamiliar office. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It works great.
I works find great. The video, having a video chat is, I feel so much more connection than even a phone call, and I've been in sales for like 35 years. It's just like it's an amazing difference. So
yeah, it is. It's great. It's the best. Like all the stuff with Facebook, the internet, this kind of stuff. Like, we are living in amazing times. Yeah. All the stuff that I do now would not have been possible 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So
people are starting to wake up, and
exactly.
And, things are definitely moving in that direction. So I want to talk a little bit about narcissists and emotional vampires.
Sure. Yes.
Because you're
I have a support group. I have a support group for victims of narcissistic abuse. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I have no idea why, the victims of narcissists have flocked to me my entire life. I'm kind of one of these people that attracts the outliers. A lot of my friends are kind of the outliers, and they'll open up to me. And I think that that's what it is, because the thing with narcissists is that their type of abuse is so incredibly insidious. It's unseen. There's something that they use called gaslighting, so you question your own sanity. Like, as we've seen in politics right now, we don't have to talk about who or where, but they like to double down on stuff. So if you catch them in a lie, they'll press that lie. It's just like a woman that catches her husband cheating, and she goes, confronts him, and he'll turn around and blah, 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 and talk about her. Well, I see that a lot, right? That's a narcissistic technique. They try to push it back on you and use projection. Yeah, no, it's really common.
Explain gaslighting. You said gaslighting. It's an interesting term, but explain what that is.
Okay. So gaslighting comes from a movie from the 40s, I believe, or the 30s. No, the 40s. And it was about a rich woman whose husband tries to get control of her fortune by putting her in a psych ward. And the way that he tries to make her go crazy is he uses the gas lights in the house. He turns the gas down so that it's too dark to see properly. And she's always like, what's going on with the lights? And he's like, nothing. What's wrong with you? The lights are fine. So that's where that comes from. That's why it's called gaslighting. Wow. So those are people that will particularly mislead you so that they can control you. And it's very common with narcissists. It's one of their top techniques. So if you're somebody that has a narcissistic, let's say, parent, and you know that you were abused emotionally, and you try to say to them, listen, I've had a really hard time, and I think that you were emotionally abusive, they will try to change your memories, or you're crazy, you're remembering things wrong. What's wrong with you? Like, do you know what I mean? They'll make the victim. Yeah, they'll make the victim question their own sanity.
Wow.
And they'll badger them so that they'll question their own sanity, right?
Wow. So this is another narcissistic tactic.
Very much so. Yeah, that is a common one.
Characteristics. What are some of the other characteristics of a narcissist?
Oh, jeez. They're so awful, all of them. The worst one, I think, is called love bombing. And it's the way that a narcissist will try to get you in their web. Okay? So I would use an example of narcissists that women will meet online. Maybe there's a lonely woman. She's in her 50s. She wants to meet some guy. She meets him online. He is all over her. And I mean, he is love bombing. And what he does is that you're the one, you're my soulmate. When we met, blah, blah, you know, the whatever flowery language, right, that he can use. He usually moves very fast. You know, they're living together in 3 weeks. And we all know people like this, right? Where everything happens bang, 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 way too fast. And that's the love bombing phase. And they use that to kind of dazzle their victims, right? So that when they get you into that situation where you're married to them and all of a sudden everything that you have, half is theirs, they got you right where they want you. And it's only a matter of time with a narcissist. Yeah. They're very manipulative.
Now, the way you're describing it, and I'm sure relating to some of the clients, and you may have a predominantly, clients maybe predominantly women or what.
I have a lot of women. Much more women than men.
Men are capable of being narcissistic. How about women? Do you know any women?
Yes. Okay. Yes, they are too. Yeah. Men don't reach out for help as much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'll get 10 women to 1 man that would come to me for help, I would say. Much different. Women are much more in touch with their feelings, and they feel good opening up to another woman because they know that we've been there. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And I've been the victim of narcissistic abuse in my own personal life and my private life, my work life as well. Mm-hmm. They're the worst. Narcissists in the workplace are scary because they want to crush you. Narcissists, the weirdest thing about them is not only do they have to be the best and the center of attention, they must destroy you for that to feel good. Do you know what I'm saying? They can't just be the best. They have to see you crushed. Yeah. And that energy, I am sure there's something called a Coggins camera that can see the aura. It's got an algorithm so you can see it. I'm sure you've seen the aura cameras, and some of the expensive ones are very good. Yeah. And if you saw somebody standing and getting a narcissist receiving their supply, it's called narcissistic supply. That's how they keep their ego up. Supposedly they operate at about a 6-year-old's kind of level of mentality, which is I'm the king of the castle and you're the dirty rascal. So they have to be the king, but you have to suffer too. Right. They have both those things. Mm-hmm. So they're dangerous people to be around. They are. You don't want to have any more to do with them than you have to. If you have to deal with them with work, there's techniques so that you can keep them at arm's length so that they don't do you much harm. But they are emotional psychic vampires. Like if you saw them on a Coggins camera, you would see the way that they suck that energy out of your aura. Because I can see I know most people, as they work with Reiki, they start to be able to see auras. And I'm talking years. Some people never see them and they get all frustrated. And it's like, don't worry about it, right? If it comes, it comes. Just let it be. Yeah. But you can see when somebody comes to me that's a victim of narcissistic abuse, their aura is compacted. It's been sucked out in areas. It's ragged. And that's when people get sick. That's when people get depressed. Mm-hmm. They don't have that spiritual armor to keep away the negative energy anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it's damages them. It really does. I think that the narcissists somehow instinctively want that energy. I don't know what it is. Right. It's despicable.
Well, now, okay, so you have the narcissist.
Yes.
Then you have the let's call them the victim. But certainly at some point the victimhood needs to be released to be able to get past and grow.
Yes, and the only way that I've ever seen people do that is to be completely no contact with the narcissist.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will always have them back in your chair talking to you after their last horrible like this with the narcissist, right? Where they.
That I was sure was so there's a certain level. There's a level of responsibility on the part. Is there certain characteristics or traits of a person that makes them more susceptible to a narcissist?
Well, there's theories about it that people that are empathic are more sucked in by them because they want to fix the world, right? Empaths are full of love. They want to help everyone. And they also want to feel needed and blessed like we all do. They want to feel loved. And so a narcissist technique of love bombing, that's going to really catch anybody. You don't have to be any particular type. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing, is that they're very wily in their ways. They manage to catch up a lot of people that normally wouldn't be. But they can be very charismatic. Absolutely. That's the thing. That's why they're so scary. They can be quite charismatic. And I don't know if you're watching that assassination of Gianni Versace. They believe that Andrew Cunanan that killed him was a textbook narcissist into a psychopath. And he is textbook. If you watch that show, textbook. Oh. It was all about him.
Wow.
It was his world. We were just living in it, right? And that's the way that they think. So if you're around it, you will always come out second fiddle. You'll always... Most of the people that I see completely healed remove that person from their lives.
Yeah, so it's that person, but is there any particular things that they have to do to maybe be more aware?
Yeah, they have to. Well, usually if they talk to me, anybody with a love bombing phase, their spidey senses are up at that point. They're not going to fall for that again, right?
For that again, yeah.
They won't fall for that again because they all do it. It's the first gambit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they like it. A lot of the time, they're so mechanical with the way they are. They have certain ways that they operate, and that's the way it is. And it's so stunning to me to see how similar the way that they act is. It's like it's a disease, right? That has certain parts. Here's the first problem. Here's the second symptom. It's really strange. They haven't figured it out yet, right? Like it's one of those cutting edge areas of study right now. But we know that these people cause a lot of damage, a lot of destruction. So I'm here for the people that are the hurt, the walking wounded.
The wounded.
Yeah.
So we might be talking later.
Yeah. Listen, everybody's got an issue. Everybody's got an area that has been hard in their life. That's the spiritual journey. Nobody gets out alive. Yeah. Nobody gets out scot-free. Everybody thinks that it's like, every once in a while I hear some very simplistic, positive thinking. That's just nonsense. Where it's like, if you only think good thoughts, only good things will happen to you. And it's like, are you out of your mind? Life intrudes, right? We still live in the material world. Maybe in our spiritual world, we can make it happen that everything is perfect and love and light and all that. But we still have to pay the bills. We still have to walk the dog. We still have to live in the material world. So there's going to be stuff that happens.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's all about just being able to navigate through it.
Yeah, exactly. And have a laugh. Yeah. One of the biggest things is the sense of humor. That is a spiritual thing. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. If you can't laugh at something, there's something wrong. Have to see why that is, because the spirituality of laughter, it is what greases the wheels. I find that when I go in to a wedding and I can make them laugh and make them have a good time, then everybody relaxes and then things are great. A lot of the time people are nervous. There's parts of the family that maybe don't get along. But if we can all have a little laugh, it goes a long way. It is a very spiritual practice. I mean, there's people that have that laughing yoga right now, right? Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Talk a little bit about the group, your support group.
Yes.
How do you conduct that, and how could you be a part of that?
That's just a free one. If they go to my Facebook page, they go to my website, and you've got all the links there. They just go to the Facebook page, and they'll see it right there, and they can just click to join. Mm-hmm. And I check everybody's. I do look over their profiles. I won't, have anybody that's a whatever, only light and love. Only light and love.
A wolf in sheep's clothing?
Yeah, none of those. They're not allowed. And they show themselves pretty fast. They get booted back out pretty fast if they're full of nonsense or stalking somebody.
Group or a secret group on Facebook?
It's just closed. It's just closed. Yeah, it's not a secret group.
Okay. Do you find that people open up publicly?
Yeah. We've had so many ladies, because it's mostly women. I'll tell you that once again. It's probably one guy to every 20 women. We have women that are in crisis, that are literally running for their lives with their kids into a shelter, and they just want somebody that can hold their hand virtually. And so there's 10 women that will jump on and go, it's okay, here's what you do, and talk to them about all the social services that they can get, because they're not thinking straight, they're freaking out, right?
Right. So
if they can get some free, and they have no money. That's the other thing. Like, as a minister, a lot of the stuff I do is free. I'm not going to turn somebody away if they call me and say, I'm going to jump off this bridge. You know what I mean? I want to talk to you. I want to help you. And it's the same thing with these women that are getting away from narcissists. A lot of them don't have a dime, because the narcissist has completely either drained the bank accounts or owns everything, has had everything put in their name. Like, when they break up with a narcissist, you want to see ugly. That's when it gets ugly. So for me, Reiki. You have to learn Reiki and do it every day, because otherwise I don't know how people could get over the grudges. I don't know how people could get over the feeling of having somebody be so horrible to you and not being able to let it go. With Reiki, I find the amazing thing is that you can let it go because you're asking Reiki to heal it for the highest good of all concerned. You're not asking, please let me forgive so-and-so. You don't even need to go that far down the rabbit hole. It just needs to be send the Reiki energy to the situation, and you'll find that the cords will fall away. And that's the way I want it to be, You want it to be for the highest good of all concerned. You don't want your ego to have to figure out what you got to do next. That's too much.
What got you into trouble in the first place?
Exactly. Always. Yeah. Absolutely.
So great. Well, that's excellent. And, I want to talk a little bit more about, the science and spirituality, because I think that's really key. And I think that's, at least that's where, I tuned in more so when I was hearing about, this technique, this scientifically proven technique, this meditative technique, this technique, that Reiki, these different sort of things. Do you find that people are more receptive when you talk about the science aspect of it?
I don't know that it's so much. They can Google that. People that talk to me are sold, I think. Yeah. Or want to be sold. They can check out the science all they like and know that I know what the science is, and that's why I do it. But I think that people just want the results. Why wouldn't they? Yeah. Life's too short. We can all sit on our credentials and reports and this and that, but if you don't take it and move it into your life and making it bear fruit in your life, what's the point? It's all academic, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what else is going on in Ontario? Talk about you have venues around there for weddings and things like that.
Yes. Sure. Yeah. Just had a wedding this last weekend. It was lovely. Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is weddings, because you actually get to, see the love, share the love. I've been married for almost 20 years, so I totally believe in marriage. I know you can make it work. We've seen each other through hell and high water. You have to remain friends. That's the biggest thing. You just have to be friends. Sometimes you might want to slap the other one, but you gotta laugh about it, right? You're never gonna agree 100% ever. So that's the thing that people have to remember. And the thing that I find interesting is that, people come to me that have, one of the people has had an affair or whatever it is, and they can still be happy. They can still get over it. They can still put on their big boy or big girl pants and find out what went wrong. The one that transgressed needs to apologize and needs to make it right and needs to be fully repentant. Okay. People get forgiveness. People in New Age, people, oh, you must forgive. Oh, you must forgive. And it's like, no, you don't have to forgive. You can send it all the Reiki symbols. Forgiveness is for the Reiki. To forgive, you're forcing your ego to do something that maybe it's not ready to do yet, so that you become so stubborn that you kind of close your heart. And so I find that pushing people into forgiveness too early is counterproductive, totally. And people have to be truly repentant. Like, you have to remember, I've seen people get back together and I've seen it work, but the one that did the transgressing must repent truly. And truly would be somebody that, doesn't go out with the boys anymore, just goes out. You go out as a couple or as a family. You don't have certain activities that are high risk. Drinking and carousing is for single people, and people don't want to hear what I have to say a lot of the time, but the studies are in, these are the things that work. Your life has to be an open book with the person that you want to be with forever. That's it. They should know all your passwords, be able to get into your phone, be able to get into your Facebook. And if they shouldn't, or if they can't, then you have to look at why that is. Okay, that's a crack. Yeah. Sorry, people.
And that's part of what you're counseling the couple before marriage and through that.
Yeah. And people aren't ready sometimes to hear that, right? They're like, oh well, I still have to have my my independence and this and that. And I'm talking like I was like that. You know what I mean? Like I have my maiden last name. I wouldn't change my last name for a man. So, but, I had 20 years of marriage has shown me, the way that things need to be for people to be happy. Yeah. So, I just talk about what I've seen. And that's what I said. That's the difference between a coach. A coach has actually done it. Okay. A spiritual mentor or a coach has actually done it. They've actually been married 20 years, 55 years, right? You're not going to have a divorced person coaching you. It's not going to work because it's just not the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. They can be a divorce coach. Right. Because there's people that go through that too.
Yes.
And they need a coach too, because that's a harrowing situation. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I had a starter marriage. So I can do divorce coaching too. And it can also prove that you can get married again and you can be together for 20 years or however long, right? Yeah. My parents I think it's up on their 55th or 56th wedding anniversary. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. But it's like I learned that as a child, it has to be that you're friends. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing. Yeah. A friend is going to be there for you no matter what. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you're, chronically ill, crazy accidents where the person needs to be taken care of for a couple of years. Like, you don't know, maybe the rest of their life. It's when you get together, it's you make vows and these things can happen. That's what I talk about too in marriage prep. Like, people forget the for better or for worse, the worst does actually happen sometimes. You got to be prepared. Life is very, that's what that letting go with Reiki was all about, that article that I wrote. You never know. And to think that you're in control, I'm sorry, the universe is in control and we don't know what's there for our highest good. It could be very dramatic. It could be very wonderful. It could be fantastic. It could be very rough for a couple of years and then wonderful. Right? It's all about how you deal with it. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Well, now, tell me what's going on there in Ontario. different maybe venues that you do the weddings at, or some of the sites. Talk a little bit about that, where you do the weddings.
Oh, there's some beautiful. I'm in the area called York Region, which is just north of Toronto. Mm-hmm. So it's very horsey, and there's a lot of pretty farmland. And we've got beautiful venues. There's there's wineries. They're all very premium. It's gorgeous. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Some of the golf clubs are just beautiful too. There's a few historic sites that I work out of here. There's one called the Sharon Temple that was a really interesting structure. It was built in the 1830s, I believe, or 20s, and it was a sect called the Children of Peace, and they split off from the Quakers, and at one point they had about 1,800 people living there. It was this crazy bunch of the Children of Peace, and they had this square building that was very tall, the Sharon Temple. If you ever look it up, it's an architectural marvel. And there's a big golden ball that had peace written across it, hanging in the middle at the top. And it was 4 ladies in white robes that went up and hung it up. And they were like blessed and consecrated. It was really amazing. So for me, that place has the most strong spiritual vibes. When you do a wedding in there, you really feel it. It's like stepping into a piece of fine furniture. It's all wood. You know how the Quakers did it, all wood? Yeah. So there's some really interesting places like that around to do weddings.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is the temple available for Reiki training or other?
They're a little bit, because the Children of Peace still run it. Mm-hmm. They don't like certain things like that. So that's a bit too new agey. I've done meditation classes in there. They're okay with that, but anything a little bit further, they're still very Christian, right?
Right.
Yeah, so they're very only certain things are okay.
Yeah,
I understand. I'd be the same way, right?
Yeah. Well, I just think the energy in a place like that would be great.
Exactly, it was amazing. Yeah. A lot of the paranormal stuff happens when we do meditation classes there too, because it just happens. Mm-hmm. I think it's hard to describe. That's a very haunted place. We could talk about that for hours too. There's lots of stories about that place.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what's coming up for you? Do you have any conferences? Do you speak? What sort of trainings? What sort of things do you have coming up?
There's always something going on. They just go to my Facebook page. They'll see. Like, I do classes, seminars. I do webinars. I'm in the middle of a lot of crazy stuff right now. It's very busy. But I'm trying to get it all online. Like I said, I'm trying to get it all on webinar or on webcam. Like I said, I find it just works so well to connect with the clients, but also the fact that it's eco. You're not burning oil. You're not burning gas. You're not, putting miles on your car. Yeah. You're not paying to be someplace. Just the whole thing with travel. I think that this is such a superior way of doing things. Why wouldn't we take advantage of it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the future is now.
The future is now. Now, aside from being on Facebook, and of course you have your web page, are you doing anything else to get clients from?
Well, just the social media, like Twitter, like Facebook, different pages, writing articles, things like that. I think that it just takes time. I've been in it for so long, like a long, long time. I've been doing this work since my early 20s, so it's just a continuation.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not one to spend a bunch of money on ads or anything like that. I can't do it. I can't afford it.
Well, certainly, doing this for so long, you certainly have, you've already done the groundwork to have the word out there and
yes, for sure.
And
that's right.
Envy of all the fledgling, the new, and the the relative.
It takes years. It takes years.
Yeah.
It takes years and years and years, and it's not a straight path. It's not a straight trajectory. I find that it kind of, it's like this, and you may get involved in different things and then come back to it, and that's just fine. Mm-hmm. People just try to force themselves into a mold, And like we said, once again, is that ego? Is that your ego saying, I am a great healer, I only do this? It's like, listen, you know, sometimes you gotta walk the dog and pay the bills.
Right.
Right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Nothing wrong
But
with
you can make that a spiritual practice too, right?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
One of the difficulties I see that many new Reiki practitioners or Reiki practitioners coming into businesses really trying to figure out how to get that going, how to
Sure.
make that happen, and how to balance there. So, do you have any words of wisdom for?
I think that it's really word of mouth. Really boils down to word of mouth. So that takes time. You have to have patience. You have to have other things you do, I think, and just take it from there. That's the way I would do it. Because then that way your practice grows organically, which is the way that it should. You may not be somebody that is just like an RMT that, like a massage therapist that cranks out 5 a day. It's probably not going to be that way, because the market is different for what we do. It is a spiritual practice, right? And like I said, as clergy, a lot of the work that I do is unpaid because people come to me in crisis. I'm not going to turn them away. Yeah. Talk to me. That's what I'm here for, right?
Yeah. Well, I know for me personally, Reiki has been incredibly transformative, and I'm relatively new to Reiki. Was first attuned in 2015.
Okay.
I had an amazing experience in September in Kurama, Japan, the birthplace of Reiki.
Sure.
Holy Fire Reiki.
That's amazing. Yeah. Sure.
William Lee Ryan.
Well, it's not a contest. Like people are like, it doesn't matter. As long as you are connecting with the energy, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. Yeah. It's not a contest. We don't get a medal for it.
Right. Well, and my point being is that it's been an incredibly valuable self-help tool for me.
Sure.
It's helped me just tremendously and in a very transformative way, that even now that some of the things I process through that I'm conscious about, it's more like a conversation in my head and not this whole drama played out again.
Exactly. It's more balanced, right? More balanced.
Even before 2015, if I was reliving something from the past, it was probably just a lot of not good things were happening at that time. I was not dealing with it well.
Yeah.
And so, as a self-care tool, I find it invaluable, and I'm sure your clients do too.
Sure, because when you learn Reiki and you've got your level 2, so you can do distance Reiki, is that if you get those intrusive thoughts about bad memories that you don't want to live through anymore, you don't want to keep repeating them over and over, you can use your Reiki and send the distance, send the Reiki symbols from your third eye to that memory, to that time period, and just saturate it with the symbols. And eventually it will loosen its hold, and you will start to see the lesson in it all. Because there's always a lesson. When we peel off all those layers of hurt and anguish and we want to get revenge, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you go through, there's always a lesson in it. That's not to say that it should have happened or that it was great that it happened, because that's ridiculous. And people say, so it's for the best. It's not for the best. It's just what happened. So please, sometimes things are difficult for a time, and it's how we overcome them. But don't sit there and tell me that these horrible things happening to you are like a blessing, because it's still very difficult. If you start trying to force that down people's throat, they will just turn off because it'll be too much, right? They'll just be like, it's like you are giving them a hard time for feeling their pain. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, rubbing salt in the wound.
Exactly. There's a certain amount of people in the new age, I find especially, that if somebody wants to talk about their pain or feeling bad or that type of stuff, their rage, they will get a talking to that they're being negative, right? Which is the stupidest thing in the world, because people need to get this stuff off their chest. They need to air it, put some sunlight on it so that it can just go away. You know, if you don't talk about it, it never goes away. You've just got it pushed down, which is the worst place for it, right? That's why people talk to professionals like me. You can't say this to your friends, right? Because it could involve them, and then they'll never talk to you again, right?
Absolutely.
But,
I'll send them to you. I'll send them.
Yeah. They just got to get it off their chest, and then it's good, right? They just feel like, like they just went to the spa.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
yeah.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for being on our show.
My
tonight.
pleasure.
You're just a joy to talk to. You're just so bursting with light. I love it. And
Thank you.
I appreciate you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. We'll be back next Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, with another episode of Reiki Currents. Namaste.
Bye.